LeBron James all the way in.
And here comes Simmons the other way, 3-on-2. Simmons eludes the defender and lays it in with that. Certainly the length altered that shot. Out of the window, steps and crunches.
Play right there. Porzingis from Jennings, throw down and a foul.
Irving, splits the defense with the dribble. Oh,
All right, Bernie. Moving on to the 7th seed currently, Portland Trailblazers.
This is going to surprise you, but I think that they are, besides the Oklahoma City Thunder, because that's a given, this Trailblazers team is the most disappointing team to me.
Really?
Because I had them at like 4 or 5.
Yeah, I could see it.
I just think they had the tools and utilage to be like a very 4 or 5 team, but they're not doing anything in terms of assists because it's Damian Lillard going one-on-one, CJ McCollum going one-on-one. Especially now that Damian Lillard was injured, it was basically CJ McCollum's team.
Yeah.
And they're not scoring enough points per game, but they're also not allowing a lot of points per game. But they have to score a little bit more, and they're just not doing it right now. I'm a little bit disappointed in, even though he had a great game against the 76ers, Yusuf Nurkic.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's balling out, and that's the reason why I thought those 3 guys would have a great chemistry and aura with them that should have brought them to the top. So if I had to give the Trailblazers a grade, I'd have to give them a C.
A C? Okay, I'm going to give them a C too. And I'm going to explain this, but I'm going to use somebody else's, something somebody else said. All right, Bill Simmons, all right?
Okay.
I was listening to his podcast recently, and he said something that I actually agreed with, and I hadn't thought about it. He said that he thought the Portland Trailblazers should pick between C.J. McCollum and Damian Lillard and focus on one of them as their guy and, trade one of them, right?
Interesting.
And I honestly think it's a really good idea because I think they're very, very similar players. They do a lot of the same thing. And I think you can get basically everything that one of them does on a nightly basis just out of one of them, right? If you don't need them both on the court necessarily to get the performance out of each of them, right? It's kind of like it's pretty similar to the Pelicans in the sense that you have 2 very good guys that almost play the same position who kind of do the same exact thing, right?
Right.
And it kind of makes them compete between themselves on the team. And I actually agree. I think they should get rid of one of them. And if it was up to me, I would keep C.J. McCollum.
Oh, okay.
I would keep C.J. McCollum and trade Damian Lillard. And that's no slight at Damian Lillard because he really is an incredible player. But I think you could get a lot of value out of him. You can add to your team, probably get a small forward, somebody to,
Send him to the Knicks?
I mean, I'm not going to say no to that, but I'm just kidding. Don't send him to the Knicks. We don't have anything to trade for. But I think you can. This team is really good, and I agree with you. What they have, they should be better. But I think it's a sign that they're competing amongst themselves to do the same thing. And if they got rid of one of those guys and put in some other really good role players, or even got some really good value out of Damian Lillard and got a star small forward, what if they got Paul George, That could be a really good fit because then you got Nurkic, Paul George, C.J. McCollum. That's a great squad to me, and I think it solves a lot of the issues that they have. There you go. That's my summation of the Portland Trailblazers. Portland, I like your team though, so don't get too hard on us.
All right. Should we move on to number 6?
Let's move on.
The Denver Nuggets.
Denver Nuggets. I love the Nuggets. I'm going to give them an A.
An A? Wow.
I'm going to give them an A because I think we've seen some really good things, some flashes of absolute brilliance out of them, and I think it's just going to keep getting better as the season goes on. Like I mentioned earlier, Jamal Murray. I love the growth I've seen from Jamal Murray. I love the growth I've seen from Gary Harris and Jokic as well. Jokic, excuse me, I said Jokic. Yeah, I love this Nuggets team. They're so fun to watch, too.
Mm-hmm.
If you guys haven't watched any Nuggets games, go check them out. They're very entertaining. Yeah, I really like this team. It's almost like I feel like I've said all I need to say for the team. They're an A. I think they're going to keep getting better. They have a great squad.
Yeah, I think for my grade, I'm going to have to give them a B+. Great team so far. They've, it's halfway through the season, so there's a lot more games to play. But Nikolai Jokic is playing probably his best ball that he's ever played for this team.
Mm-hmm.
Gary Harris has improved. I think he probably should, him or Jamal Murray should be in contention for most improved player of the year. You got guys like Kenneth Faried who have been there for a while who give you some solid backup minutes. Mason Plumlee as well. Emmanuel Mudiay, who's one of their top draft picks.
Wilson Chandler puts up some great minutes for them along with Will Barton too.
Yeah, so this team is great. If we look at their points per game, they're 10th with the 107.2. Their assists, they're 7th. They're 23.3. Rebounds, they're tied for 4th. So that's also another good one as well.
Mm-hmm.
And then points allowed, they're middle of the pack with that, but they're scoring enough points that where it's top 10 that they don't have to worry about that. They just, when they need to lock up, they need to lock up. But it's kind of crazy to me that they are third in the NFC, or I don't know, football.
The NFC.
The Northwest standings, so with Minnesota and OKC. It's crazy to me that Denver's even, competing with those guys.
Mm-hmm.
But, it just goes to show you, the coaching staff and what they've done with this team. The players have really stepped up and improved, and Jokic, just great all-around game.
Superstar in the making. Yeah, just last thing. I think, they're kind of built for success on almost every part of their team. Their coaching staff is great. Mike Malone is a great coach. Their starting lineup is great, and their bench players are great. And they have players, like we said, Will Barton and Wilson Chandler, who come off the bench. Kenneth Faried as well, put up some big numbers when they need it. And then they can win games that, they were behind in or whatever the case may be, They play great defense. They play really hard on defense, too.
Yeah.
So even though their points per game allowed isn't the best, it's kind of middle of the road, they don't necessarily play like a middle of the road defensive team. I think they're better than that when push comes to shove.
All right. Ready for number 5?
Number 5.
Top 5. The Oklahoma City Thunder. One of our teams that we like to talk about a lot on the channel.
Yes.
What's your grade? What do you give them?
So I said earlier that I thought the Cleveland Cavaliers were going to be the hardest team to grade. I think it might be Oklahoma City.
Yeah, I think so too.
Because as of late, they're not performing bad. They've had a couple unlucky losses, especially the Milwaukee Bucks game. They should have won that game.
And the Mavericks game as well.
Mavericks game too. Man, it's really tough. I want to give them a B-. I think they need C+. I'm changing it. C+. I think they have a lot of room to grow, but I think that this team, what we're seeing right now, they're not going to look anything like this come next year. I think they're going to have a different coach. And honestly, I think they're going to be back down to just Russell Westbrook. Paul George is definitely not staying. Honestly, I think they're going to figure out something with Carmelo Anthony too.
Yeah.
Love you, Carmelo, but I think you're not going to be in OKC for much longer. But it's kind of what I said about Cleveland. It's hard to grade a team that I know is not going to look the same come 6 months from now, you know? And I think there's flashes of absolute brilliance for this team, like the Warriors game, where they absolutely dominated that game. I think they might have been missing somebody that night, the Warriors that night, though. I don't remember. But they looked great in that game. But there's been so much, there's been a lot of bad games, too. Just absolutely dreadful. And we put up the video why they're the most disappointing team. And they've started to kind of prove us wrong. They're winning a lot of games recently. I think it says they're 7-3 in their last 10.
Yeah.
Which is honestly more maybe a 9-1, or 8-2, because they should have won a couple of those games that they lost, but shoulda, coulda, woulda, So it is what it is, and they're 20-17. They're gonna make the playoffs, and I made a controversial statement not too long ago. I said there's a chance they don't make the playoffs, which now I'm gonna take back, just based on what I've seen from some of the other teams, like the Pelicans. I don't think they can compete with the Thunder when it comes down to it. But yeah, I'm just very meh about the team. Just meh. I'm kind of tired of all the drama around the team, more drama like on the court, so to say, like what's going to happen with them. I don't really care anymore. And I don't think there's any chance they win a championship this year.
Yeah, I mean, the Thunder right now, I would have to give them a B- to a C. Like, it's just in that range. Based on the fact that they could go, either they could do really well or they could do really bad. I believe they were, let me look real quick, they're third in points allowed, so their defense is outstanding.
Yeah.
It's just the other stats, like assists, you need those to win your games. Rebounding, they're 12th, so that's good, but their points per game is only 20th.
Yeah.
So it just kind of goes to show you that they rely on their defense heavy because they don't pass the ball a lot. There's a lot of ISO movement, so you're not really getting good shots.
Yeah.
And that's the reason why your points per game is really low. And it just kind of frustrates me because when the season first started, I was really excited about this team because I thought this could be a brand new start for Carmelo. Mm-hmm. He had a great, Instagram New York gym session.
Yeah.
With LeBron James and other players like Russell Westbrook. But it just kind of goes to show you that Russell Westbrook, 1, has not changed his game to suit these guys. 2, Paul George, although he's playing really well, scoring 20 points a game, I just feel like he's not really the same guy.
Yeah.
Before the leg injury, which is unfortunate because I really, really hope that he would.
Mm-hmm.
And then 3, Carmelo Anthony is just out of shape, in my opinion. I think he doesn't look like, if we look at what Carmelo looked like when he first began in the season,
mm-hmm.
or even like a couple of seasons in when he was still a Denver Nugget,
mm-hmm.
he just doesn't look anything like that anymore.
Yeah.
I feel like he's kind of let himself go a little bit. And
I would agree.
And it's just like, it just frustrates me because he was one of my favorite players watching.
Yeah.
I bought his signature shoes. I did a lot of stuff with him.
The Mellows.
In terms of like wearing the Mellows and wearing him to the game, but he just hasn't proven anything.
Yeah. We've talked about it a lot, especially my disappointment with Russell Westbrook. And like you said, I don't think he's changed his game at all. I think he did, but he didn't at the same time to start the season. Like
mm-hmm.
he essentially he kept doing the same thing he always does, but he just did it less, which is kind of a weird thing to say, but he just kind of let other players do their ISO stuff for a couple possessions a game, and it just didn't work. So now they're kind of changing it and going back towards the Russell Westbrook model of things where he kind of just dictates the pace and does whatever he wants. And in my opinion, there's no way you can compete with that. There's no way. He's just like the stat stuffing. It doesn't really matter when you go against a team like Houston or Golden State.
Yeah, it's just crazy to me that this is what this team has become. Basically, like I've been saying, you need a team full of Steven Adams for Russell Westbrook to be successful because he's kind of like a bigger and faster and stronger build of Allen Iverson.
Mm-hmm.
In the sense that that's how the team plays.
Yeah.
So if you just get a team full of Steven Adams, you could have a chance to win.
You'd be decent, yeah. But they don't have that. They have Carmelo and Paul George. So, I mean, I honestly do hope the best for them, but I think, like I said, I think Billy Donovan's gone,
mm-hmm.
Paul George is gone, and less chance of this happening, but I do think it's going to happen too. I think Carmelo's going to be gone too.
Yeah.
Let's move on, Bernie.
Number 4, the Minnesota Timberwolves. These guys in the last 10 have won 7-3. They've played very well. And, this is exactly the spot I had them at. So I have to give him a B.
Okay.
B to a B+, just based on the fact that this is where I expect them. This is the range right now. Adding Jimmy Butler should do a lot more for them, but it hasn't so far.
He's finally starting to come into his own, though.
Yeah, he's starting to come into his own. Karl-Anthony Towns still playing really well. Defense is a little bit suspect at times. But, this team is doing decently well. They have a lot of good older stars that help this young team in some aspects. Andrew Wiggins needs to learn how to shoot a little bit. Mm-hmm. And I think this team will be perfect. But they're right where they're at for me. They've done very well. They're, 6th in points per game, so that's really good. And they're 20th in points allowed, which is surprising for a Tom Thibodeau team. And also, just another thing, points per game or assists per game, they're 11th, so they're, doing decently well. And then rebounding, they're 22nd somehow, which
Needs to be better.
Needs to be better, but they're good to me. So B to B plus is where I'm going.
To me, they're good. I'm gonna give them a B. I don't have much to say. I've been saying it since the beginning of the season. I think their defense is suspect. I called that very early. I was right. Okay. Credit where credit is due. I'm just kidding. But I did call that very early, and I think a lot of that boils down to Karl Anthony Towns. His defense needs to improve. I think he has the capabilities to be better than he is, and he will get better. Coach Thibodeau needs to get his defense on point. Once they get those points per game down, this team could end up, honestly, they could do some damage in the playoffs.
Yeah.
And they could surprise a team like Houston, or even San Antonio. There's just a chance they could do it because they really are built very well and they have great coaching. They get a lot of quality minutes off their bench. And, they have great role players. Like Taj Gibson is having one of the best years of his career. So I like this team, but I don't have much to say about them because, like Bernie said, this is kind of where we expected them to be.
All right, should we move to number 3 then? The San Antonio Spurs.
San Antonio basketball Spurs.
So this one to me, like you did the last one for the Minnesota Timberwolves, I'm not going to say a lot about them. They're the Spurs. They're always supposed to be in the top 3. Just the only thing I'd say is Kawhi Leonard's injured, so that's like the only negative side. But other than that, like the grade I would have to give them is B plus, because they were able to still be top 3 without Kawhi Leonard, who is their star, and I guess LaMarcus Aldridge is stepping up into his scoring role. What you got?
Well, Kawhi is back, but limited availability. Yeah. So, it's the same thing. Same thing with Bernie. I'm not going to grade them too hard. Honestly, I'm going to give them an A because they did play without Kawhi for so long, and they still managed to be in the top 3. But I expected no less from them, really. So it's not like I don't want to give them too much credit for that, even though they deserve it. It's kind of like it's the same thing as the Patriots. They do their thing. They're going to win games regardless. You don't want to undermine how valuable that is as a team, but it still is impressive. They're also leading the league in opponents' points per game.
Yeah,
so
like 98.1 or something like that.
So that's pretty great. So it's the Spurs. That's kind of what everybody expected. As Kawhi gets healthier, they're just going to keep getting better too. Not bettier. They're going to get better.
All right, number 2, Houston Rockets. What you giving them a grade?
They've had a rough couple weeks.
Yeah.
They've had a rough couple weeks, but I don't necessarily think it has much to do.
And it only gets a little rougher with James Harden with an injury.
James Harden is injured. How long does it say he's going to be out for? A week or 2?
Maybe a week or 2. It's a hamstring injury, so those are you don't know.
You don't know. It could be long. Who knows? But honestly, it might be good for Harden in the long run to take a couple weeks off, just to rest from this recovery, and also his workload is crazy, so he can just take a little break. That doesn't seem to be his character, though. He honestly seems to like to just run around constantly all the time, like Russell Westbrook, but better. Houston, I'm going to give them, despite their 5-5 in the last 10, I'm still going to give them an A.
Okay.
I think the whole Chris Paul experiment is, obviously working.
In some aspects, it's working.
I would say in a lot of ways it's working. I know you're still very hesitant on the Chris Paul thing, but I think it's working better than a lot of people thought it would. I know definitely better than I thought it would at first. But I like this Houston Rockets team, and I think they've definitely given themselves the best chance of any team in the last few years, minus the Spurs, to come out of the West and make it to the finals over the Golden State Warriors. So for that fact, that's why I'm giving them an A. And I do like I said, I like the Chris Paul, James Harden dynamic. And I think that they're all I just recently heard the thing about their GM, Daryl Morey, whatever his name is, came out and said they're obsessed with beating the Warriors. And I can appreciate that. I like it.
Yeah, for me, the Rockets get an A-.
Okay.
They played really well. James Harden, of course, beasting and feasting, showing you why he should have been voted the MVP. That's what he's gunning for. Team is playing like they usually do. I don't ever discredit a D'Antoni team. doing excellent in the regular season. It's just the postseason I'm a little bit worried about them, based on the fact that we saw in the Celtics game. I know, of course, there were some controversial calls, but they didn't need to be in that situation in some aspects. They could have set up a half-court offense or done something a little bit better to not get in that situation. And a thing with Chris Paul is, like, I think he has changed it. Like, I'm not going to discredit him. He has changed the culture. The defense is a lot better. I mean, in that Celtics game itself, we saw like 2 or 3 charges in a row because the Rockets players took charges and they were selling their bodies out for the defense. Mm-hmm. My only issue with it is that he always seems to get injured, and that's where I'm a little hesitant on the Rockets. As much as I love them and as much as I think they can potentially beat the Warriors, it's just the injury thing. I'm scared that he's going to get injured at the wrong time, like he has before in the past, multiple times. It's not just a 1 or 2 time incident. It's a multiple time incident. And another thing that also scares me is because he's a little bit older now, and those injuries and wear and tear start to come in. And that's the only reason why I'm giving them an A- and why I'm hesitant on them beating the Warriors, just based on that fact.
I agree.
Because I think he is sorry to interrupt, but I think he is the guy that should close out the game for you.
Harden.
Right? No, Chris Paul.
Oh, Chris Paul. I mean, he did last night against the Lakers. Scored 15 in overtime. So he went and showed that he's still capable of doing that, which I think is a really good thing. But this next couple weeks, if they can keep Chris Paul healthy and he's the leader of the team for a couple weeks without James Harden, is going to be a true test to see how capable this team is going to be. And I think just keep your eyes very closely fixed on the Rockets while James Harden's out. It's going to be very important to the rest of the season. But I just want to quickly go over their last 6 games. Lost to the Lakers, lost to the Clippers, lost to the Thunders, lost to the Celtics, lost to the Wizards. They beat the Lakers last night. I mean, that's just like, it almost just feels like a freak thing, you know? Because all those games were, they were all close, minus the Wizards game. They got blown out, but, it's just 5 games. I don't even want to penalize them for that.